You're listening to the LA Football Podcast.
Hey, what's going on, Los Angeles? Welcome back to the LA Football Show here on the LA Football Network, live on the Mightier 1090 ESPN Radio. I'm your co-host, Ryan Dyer, joined as always by the Madman today in the LAFB Lounge down in beautiful Westwood, California. Excited to be coming at you live, talking all things Los Angeles Rams as training camp is not only underway, happening as we speak. We got boots on the ground. Skinny T. Ryan Anderson is going to be in Irvine today and all weekend long, so we'll have a live report from him on a coming up show, probably not today, but we'll have him definitely on for some live updates. But we got plenty of stuff to talk about as there's already been news, as there always is with the Rams. But Madman on radio, welcome back from the break. Podcast, how we doing?
Doing well, Ryan. It's just so fun to be doing this with you in the LAFB Lounge. There's just something about being together and the camaraderie. I'm so excited about this and can't wait that this is now the norm moving forward. So big day for LAFB and big day for our show. Yeah, our last time kind of doing a lot of live stuff was Radio Row when we were in the meat locker, and now we're kind of in the sweat locker. Yeah. I feel the air coming on now. Though. You turn it on. Sir. Oh, no, it's on now. This place gets cold quickly.
It's getting a little steamy, but now I feel it's great. So from meat locker to sweat locker, but it's so great to be here and excited to kind of build up this studio here that we can use. So thank you for hosting. And,
no, of course.
Excited to talk Rams. As always, real quick, show is brought to you by our friends at BetOnline. Head to betonline.ag today. Use our promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV. Gets you a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Tell them the guys at the LA Football Network sent you. Once again, BELIEVE is the promo code. BetOnline.ag. So Jamal, first thing, let's get into some, I guess it was a relief. It wasn't good news, but a relief at the end. Cooper Kupp goes down in practice, which is what is being called a hamstring injury. Did come out and say, well, let me just say this. First we went down, there was no update. Basically, he got carted off. McVay didn't say anything in his presser, had no information. So everyone's just holding their breath like, oh, are you kidding me? Here we go. Comes out the next day. It's a minor injury. He'll miss a few weeks. Most likely will be back before training camp's even over. Just your thoughts on the injury and the huge relief it is that he's not out for more time.
No, Ryan, I mean, it was about as high a scare as you can get as a fan, as someone who's covering the team, where when the card comes out for any sort of a practice situation, that's always frightening. And then when you don't hear anything, that's even more scary because you're thinking, is the team just trying to figure out how to kind of shape this narrative moving forward? And then third, when you think about how last season ended, so all three of those ingredients were in play to kind of think the worst. And then when it came out that, look, there's nothing structural, there's nothing long-term, he could be ready to go in practice as soon as a couple of weeks from now, huge sigh of relief, no question about it. Because, Ryan, the interesting thing here is, so goes Cooper Kupp, so goes the Rams offense. Nothing interesting there. But, he is 30. He turned 30 this year. Yeah. And so, 30 is kind of that magic number with a lot of players. And when you look at his style of play and how much precision is required and how much his usage rate is and how much pounding that he takes, you start wondering how much durability is going to be there moving forward. So great to see that it wasn't anything long-term, but I'm starting to get sort of worried a little bit in a different way. Yeah. It's kind of like when your parents get older, you get worried. Nothing's wrong, but you see certain things where they're getting older and you're like, I got to be there. I got to be connected. And it sort of feels like that a little bit. And when you kind of go back, Ryan, you think about the 2018 season. He got hurt. He missed the Super Bowl run. You think about 2020. He got hurt in that Seattle game. Couldn't be there for the divisional. Obviously, the magical 21 year. And then last year. So, the injuries are starting to stack up. The age is on the other side of 30. So I'm relieved, but I have anxiety.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing to think about here, and this is, don't anyone come chasing down my door. I'm not suggesting this, but you do have to think about it as a possibility now. We've said, I think we've been one of the few that actually think this Rams team can make the playoffs still.
Yes,
we
absolutely.
feel that there's enough talent. Yes, the defense is such an unknown because of all the youth, but you still have Aaron Donald on there. You still have, some pieces. Ernest Jones has become really nice. You still have Jordan Fuller coming back from injury who missed last year. So you have pieces to where kind of that USC mantra, if you can get 4 stops on defense and the offense can stay healthy, 8 games might get you in the playoffs in NFC. So I want to say that because we've been saying it all offseason. I still believe that. But when you see this happen, another injury for Cooper Kupp, unfortunately. You mentioned the 2018, obviously last year. I believe when healthy, he's still either the best or at minimum top 3 receiver in this game. I mean, even seeing him just in training camp, what he's able to do on the field is special. I mean, his route running, his catch radius for his size, his speed, his elusiveness. We saw that great catch in the end zone from Stetson Bennett, and the dude is just a special, special receiver. But when you see this happen, and obviously it's great, he's going to come back. But you start to wonder if 6 or 7 games into the season, things aren't going how we think they will, and they're 2-4 or 2-5 or 3-6 or whatever at that point. It's probably not only smart for the Rams, but knowing just how Leslie and the Rams operate, where they might just say, you know what, Cooper Kupp's 30. He's had some injury history. This season, we're not doing anything this year anymore. We're already prepping for next year. They can trade Kupp to a contender. I know it's blasphemy. I don't want it to happen.
Yep.
So don't jump down my throat. But it's definitely is something that could end up happening if the season gets derailed early on.
Yep.
And with another injury on Cooper Kupp's resume, but a Super Bowl hungry team that is a 1A receiver away would jump at that and give maybe a second, third, maybe even a low end first for a guy of his services. So I don't want it to happen. I don't think it will happen because I think the Rams are going to be better than a 3-6 football team, even though they have a tough start to the season, but I think they're going to be competitive enough. But if it goes awry early, is definitely something that let me put it this way. I could see much more likely the Rams trading Cooper Kupp than Aaron Donald. I don't know if you agree or not, but I could see that happening more.
No, it's a really interesting take, Ryan. And I think we have to sort of frame the conversation. I think you and I are very much on the same page that this is not the doom and gloom season that everyone thinks. Look, last year I felt like this team was long in the tooth. They were fat in the belly. I kind of saw, a letdown coming. Obviously, the injuries accelerated that to a significant amount. They got a lot of hungry young guys. Look, are they a top 10 team, top 12 team in terms of talent? No. But when you put together the veteran presence with these young, hungry guys with a weak division, you and I are saying, look, this could be an 8-9 team that gets into the playoffs. That's what we're saying. Yeah. Now, what is the probability of that? We think it's greater than 50-60% that they could be 7-8 wins right around there and hovering in the playoffs. But if something goes awry early and they get to 2-4, they get to 2-5, they get to 3-9, whatever the case may be, to me, more than unless you get just a boatload. I mean, I can't say no package unless the team that you were thinking, I was thinking about when you were talking about who's hungry for kind of a 1A receiver. What was the Cowboys game calling? And Dak needs someone in the playoffs. That could be a scenario there. But I actually would shut him down. Mm-hmm. That would be my play because if they think about it, if you are 2-7, 2-8, you don't want to risk him. Yeah. You're in the Caleb Williams sweepstakes. Yeah. At that point. Yeah. And then you're trying to win the Caleb Williams sweepstakes. And then you get into a situation where you've got this great young quarterback, and now Cooper Kupp becomes this bridge to this next era. Mm-hmm. So that's where my head would go. So I completely agree with you that I don't think you're just going to trot him out there week after week in a Rams uniform. But I would be hesitant to trade him because I think if you're really that bad, you're basically in the running to get the Heisman winner. And then the Heisman winner needs weapons. So that's where my thinking goes. I think in the case of Donald, I can see a world with Kupp where there's still another 2, 3, 4 great years. Even if he gets injured this year, I think there's a ceiling there. With Donald, I think that runway is a lot shorter. Mm-hmm. I think we're sort of at the last year of Aaron Donald's prime, or at the last year of Aaron Donald being kind of an all-pro. Maybe one more year after this, if we're really stretching it. So to me, for that reason, Donald is sort of prime trade candidate if things don't work out, because then you're going for that Super Bowl contender 1 year, all in, let's go make it happen.
Yeah. So I see that twofold, because I totally agree with you in the sense that on the Rams side, it makes way more sense to trade a Donald because of the longevity, but also he's flirted with retirement. So even if he can play more, I don't think he's going to play more than 2 years. And so for that reason, is why I feel like it might be, as crazy as to say with all-world Aaron Donald, it might be more difficult to trade him, or should I say difficult to get the return they want, because a team is going to say, look, we're not going to give you any more than a fifth-round pick. The dude's going to play 6 weeks and retire and be done, and maybe we get a Super Bowl out of it, but no team has done in recent memory what the Rams have done the last few years, where they say, okay, cool, we'll take 6 weeks of OBJ. We'll take 6 weeks of Von Miller, and we'll give you a second and a third. No other team has done that. And so when you look at the history of the league,
that's a great point.
It's so rare for a team to say, okay, we'll give you a first and a third for 6 weeks of a guy to go win a ship, just because no one does that outside of the Rams, which is who he's on. So theoretically and psychologically, it makes way more sense to do that. And I could be way wrong on this, and that plays out. I just think a team wouldn't be willing, and I don't know if the Rams be willing to take a Jalen Ramsey-like trade for a guy like Aaron Donald, who they want to finish as a Ram.
No, that's a great point, Ryan. And I think, again, it becomes circumstantial. To me, the guy that becomes prime trade candidate, let's say if it's 2-6, 2-7, is Stafford.
Yeah, 100%.
Because you're sort of killing two birds with one stone there.
Yeah.
Because if you're 2-7 and in the Caleb Williams sweepstakes, then you don't need Matt Stafford here next year anyway. Go trade him to a good situation, get a boatload back, and now you're kind of in that position to sort of really accelerate the rebuild. I hear your point about the Aaron Donald piece. You know, it may be just a scenario where he ends up kind of sunsetting and retiring, and, you know, he may think differently after a year and try and come back. Mm-hmm. But I think, interestingly enough, the guy that becomes just radius, you know, on for a trade, flashing lights, is Matt Stafford.
Yeah, totally. What if I'm going to throw a scenario random? Not like I've been thinking about this at night.
Yeah.
I think this player will revive his career this year. But what if there's a scenario where the Broncos and Russell Wilson just is not back to Russell Wilson, even with Sean Payton there, and he's just not there. But the Broncos have a good defense. They're like in games. They're actually like knocking at the door of the playoffs. Rams, unfortunately, things have gone awry. Again, all these are only if the Rams things go awry. None of it's going to happen if they're as good as we think they are. Just want to keep iterating that. And so what if the Broncos, Sean Payton and George Payton come calling and say, hey, let's do a Stafford and Goff-like trade, like where you give us Stafford. We think in Sean Payton's offense, Stafford's healthy enough where he could excel. It's just not working with Russ. You guys get Russ to be your bridge guy until you bring in a Caleb Williams or whatever. He's still he still can play. He just hasn't getting us to the next level. And then we'll also throw in like a high-end pick also. I don't think that's going to happen, but what do you think about that random scenario?
I mean, I think it's a great move for... I think at the right price, I think it's win-win. Because I think when you think about, we've talked about this, when you think about the AFC and Mahomes and Allen and Burrow and Herbert and Trevor Lawrence, you know, the defense is only going to take you so far. For Denver, for them to be a truly credible AFC threat, Russell Wilson is going to have to be some semblance of Seattle Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
If he's not, it doesn't matter how good that defense is. It's going to be far-fetched to think they are truly going to contend deep in the AFC playoffs. So for them to go get a Matt Stafford, who you and I agree, maybe the second best, maybe the third best quarterback in the NFC right now, you're in a situation now where that gap is no longer as significant. You've got a great defense. You're in it. And if you're the Rams, if you can get the right picks, again, you're in that situation where the pick that you will have is going to be Caleb Williams. You're going to be in that sweepstakes, and now you can bring in reinforcements. I think it's going to be a huge deal. And, you know, you're basically telling Russ, hey, this is an audition for you now. You know, this is an 8-9 week audition. You're not in our long-term plans, but why don't you play your way into another situation? It could be a really nice move. And
now I'm just babbling, but when you just look at scheme and kind of what coaches do with their quarterbacks, I do think, and maybe it's just me being a fan. Those that don't know, I am a Bronco fan, so I do think Russ will be a lot better this year. I think last year was just such a bizarre situation. The coaching was a mess, so I think there's no way he's not at least substantially better. But when you just look at the Peyton offense and kind of specifically what he did with Drew Brees, being a pocket guy, basically able to elongate his career because of the style of passes, like kind of the lull you to sleep, dink and dump with some bigger stuff that they throw in there. That seems like a perfect fit for Matthew Stafford later on in his career in that realm. When you look at Sean McVay and how he wants to get back to the bootleg game and the mobility of the quarterback, and back when Jared Goff was here, he had the third most rollouts of any quarterback not named Lamar Jackson or Russell Wilson. So it almost would make a lot of sense, Russell being in the Sean McVay offense, and whether it resurrects his career or it's a very, very good bridge and gives a rookie like Caleb time to kind of progress. I don't think that will happen, but it's just a funny scenario that we can talk about in August.
No, absolutely, Ryan. And I think you said it best, that when you look at when Russell Wilson was at his absolute best, when we was in the kind of let Russ cook days, it was bootleg. It was play action. It was him buying time, being improvisational, and his ability to kind of turn his body, turn his hips, and make some really nice throws on the run. Yeah. And so much of that first part becomes part of the Sean McVay offense, and especially when you talk about where this offensive line has been. Obviously, Russell Wilson is not the athlete that he once was, but he still is good enough to kind of evade a pass rush now and then, and you're in a situation where there could be a really nice fit.
Yeah, so hopefully that does not happen, because that means things have gone awry for the Rams, and we want to see Matthew Stafford succeed. I think he'll have a good year as long as he stays healthy. It'll be fun to watch him, with these young guys and be the mentor and kind of take on that role that he has been such a leader his whole career. So, to kind of wrap this up, Jamal, speaking of being a mentor and being a leader, Sean McVay was very vocal about, kind of a lack of work ethic, not really work ethic, but just a lack of overall productivity at camp with some of the young guys. Kind of called people out and saying, we need to up our level here if we're going to be successful. How exciting is it to see McVay with that fire game, which I feel like he didn't really have last year. He kind of lost that. So seeing that back and just saying, that's how he was with Jared Goff. Remember, he called him only so long, and then finally he was like, all right, we got to make this happen if we're going to do anything. And so he's not necessarily calling guys out, but kind of lighting a fire, just saying, hey, we're only a week into camp, and if stuff starting to get lackadaisical, we're not going to go very far.
No, that's the big takeaway for me, Ryan, is that he's so engaged and so fired up. And that's where my optimism for this season comes from, is that you're going to have a revived Sean McVay. Yeah. You're going to have a revived Matthew Stafford, a revived Cooper Kupp, a revived Aaron Donald. Your nucleus is just re-energized. And even if you're lacking in the talent department, even if you're getting a little bit older with that core, I think that energy and that culture is good enough. That alone is good enough for 7 or 8 wins. Mm-hmm. And in a weak division, you're in a situation where you can get in to the dance.
Yep.
And so to me, I'm really excited to see him talk like that and be that way. Look, the term we used all of last year, if you recall, he was burnt out. There was something off with him. We used the term writer's block. We used all kinds of different things to explain him, because it just didn't feel like he was engaged and passionate. He just felt very disconnected. This year, he feels like he's all in, which is so exciting to see. And I think we're going to see a new Sean McVay. I think it's going to be a new Sean McVay. I don't know if it's going to be the Sean McVay that is as sort of maniacal as he was when he was young, and as sort of meticulous and attention to detail and almost neurotic that he was. And I don't think we're going to see the McVay of last year. I think it's going to be a controlled aggression. I think it's going to be a controlled attention to detail. I think he's going to sort of regulate when he needs to. He sort of went one speed early in his career, and then he went one speed last year, which was a slow speed. I think you're actually going to see him use the accelerator and the brakes a lot more this year, and really, really kind of drive the culture that he wants and the execution that he wants over the course of the season.
Well, it's a great point. I mean, there's a reason why last year was last year, why he got to that point. And it'd be silly to go back to what you were doing that would bring you to that point. So you have to find that combination as a leader and as a coach, to where you're getting your message across, but you're still, keeping yourself alive and stuff. And I think a big, it was kind of I think you and I both were, I don't know about head scratching, but we didn't necessarily love the move when Mike LaFleur was brought in as OC. But now seeing it after a few months and kind of learning more of the history, I think it makes a lot of sense, just because it does allow Sean to take a lot more off his plate. And whether that's good or bad, it at least keeps his sanity intact and lets him do the stuff that's more important than just 150 hours sitting at, in the facilities. So especially now, going to be a new dad soon, and your priorities shift, but you can still be successful and be all those things.
No question about it.
So last thing I want to say, and then we'll wrap up our Rams talk. But I forget if this was a tweet or if it was asked, and I feel bad. I can't even remember if it was Stafford or McVay. One of them, maybe you'll remember. But one of them was asked kind of who's the younger or under the radar player that's kind of surprised them so far and they're really looking forward to. And the answer was, we're not surprised. We've been saying it for a while, but Kyren Williams, running back.
Yes.
So hearing that come out of either one of those, again, I apologize. I can't remember exactly who said it. But it has me fired up because we said last year, had he not gotten injured in OTAs,
he'd be RB1.
He'd be RB1. And so now being healthy, and Cam Akers looks good too. I mean, he's put on a lot of weight. Mike LaFleur's talked about Cam Akers and how much better he wasn't here last year, but just from film last year to where he is now looks a lot better. But Kyren Williams, I think, is still the catalyst of this offense that Matthew Stafford's going to be Stafford, especially if he's healthy. He's getting slept on. We know that. Cooper Kupp, still a top 3 receiver, arguably the best receiver. You've got some talent at tight end with Higbee. The offensive line is going to be substantially better. Kyren Williams can be the catalyst of, make this thing go. I'm not saying it's going to be Todd Gurley, but we can finally see the McVay offense feature a back that can do some damage that we haven't seen the last 2 years.
No question about it, Ryan. And I think people forget how good this guy was at Notre Dame.
Yeah.
This guy was a 1,400, 1,500-yard back 2 years in a row in college in a 13-game season.
Yeah.
You're talking about one of the most dynamic athletes in college the last several years. He didn't quite get his opportunity last year because of injury. This is going to be a huge year for Kyren Williams. He's going to be the leading rusher on the team. I think he's going to be one of the 3 leading receivers on the team from a reception standpoint.
Okay.
Because of how that short passing game is going to work this year. I think it's going to be phenomenal to see Kyren Williams play. I've been so high on him for a number of years. He sort of torched SC a couple of years, I remember.
Yeah.
And so this is all sort of in the making here. I can't wait to see him on the field.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That last Clay Helton year in South Bend. Yeah.
He ran rough.
It was not pretty.
It was wild.
Not pretty. So, there you have it. Go to betonline.ag. Put your money on Kyren Williams, leading rusher for the Rams, per the Madman. But that's all the time we got for Rams Talk. Like I said, Skinny T is out camp all weekend, so we'll have updates for you. Follow him, RL Anderson, LAFB. Follow us, LAFB Jams, Ryan Dyer at LAFB. But we'll have plenty of coverage on the next episode from Rams Camp. Thank you all. Have a good weekend. If you're on radio, we'll be back after the break.